Have you ever thought that humanity's first great art galleries weren't in Paris or Florence, but in the deep, dark silence of hidden caves? What if I told you that these masterpieces, created over 20,000 years ago, hold the secrets of how our ancestors saw the world? Today we'll travel to the heart of the Stone Age to decipher the hidden messages in cave paintings. We'll discover how modern archaeology helps us understand ancient daily life and the minds of early humans. Stay until the end to understand how this explosion of creativity was a crucial step in our human evolution. And of course, if you love historical mysteries like I do, leave your like and subscribe so you don't miss any trips to the past. For us to truly feel the impact of these paintings, I need you to take a journey back in time with me. Forget the world as we know it. Take a deep breath and imagine a radically different planet. We are more than 20,000 years ago, at the height of what scientists call the Upper Paleolithic. This is not a distant, dusty past. It is a living, breathing, and dangerous world dominated by the last great ice age. Imagine an immense, often grey sky over a landscape that stretches as far as the eye can see. There are no cities, no roads, no light pollution. The nights are almost pitch black, broken only by the moonlight and the brightness of countless stars, sharper than we could ever see today. The air you breathe is cold and biting. Vast ice sheets, kilometers thick, cover northern Europe, and their icy breath descends across the plains, transforming much of the continent into a tundra steppe, much like modern-day Siberia. In this grand and hostile landscape, life flourishes spectacularly. Colossal herds of woolly mammoths, with their curved tusks and dense fur, roam slowly across the tundra, making the very ground tremble. Steppe bison, more robust and savage than their modern descendants, graze in immense herds. Reindeer, wild horses, and the fearsome cave lion, larger and more ferocious than the African lion, complete this lost ecosystem. This is the world our ancestors called home. And who were these artists? Who were the brilliant minds behind these masterpieces? They were Homo sapiens. They were exactly like us. If we could bring one of them into our time, dress him in modern clothes, he would go unnoticed in the crowd. They were anatomically modern, but their reality was different. They lived in small nomadic groups, perhaps 20 to 50 people, on a constant journey for survival, following the migrations of the animals they hunted and gathering the plants the land offered. It's important to make a distinction. Popular culture often lumps everything together and speaks of cavemen as one, but Neanderthals, another intelligent human species that inhabited Europe, had already disappeared or been assimilated millennia ago when the great cave art cathedrals, such as Lascaux and Chauvet, were being painted. What we see in these caves is the flowering of the Homo sapiens mind, an explosion of creativity that some scholars call the cognitive revolution. Something changed in their brains that allowed them to think abstractly and symbolically at a level never before seen. And the location is no accident. The region that now encompasses southern France and northern Spain, the so-called Franco-Cantabrian region, served as a refuge during the height of the Ice Age. The less severe climatic conditions concentrated an impressive amount of life, both animal and human, there. This concentration may have increased social complexity, the exchange of information, and perhaps the need for rituals and symbols that united groups. Caves in this context were not just shelters. They became sanctuaries, ceremonial centers, and the first art galleries of our species. But how did they do it? How, in total darkness and with limited resources, did they create art with such vividness and precision? Experimental archaeology provides fascinating answers. The pigments were ground minerals. The black came from manganese oxide or simple charcoal from fires. The vibrant shades of red, yellow, and brown came from clay rich in iron oxide, ochre. These powders were then mixed with some kind of binder, perhaps animal fat, plant sap, or the calcium-rich water that ran down the cave walls. The application tools were ingenious in their simplicity. They used their own fingers, tufts of animal fur tied to twigs to create brushes, or moss and fur to create a kind of stamp and spread the color. And the most impressive technique, the spray. They placed the pigment in a hollow bone or directly into their mouth and blew it onto the wall. often using their own hand as a stencil, creating those iconic negative hands that seem to beckon us directly from the past. And our certainty about the age of all this comes from rigorous science. Radiocarbon or carbon-14 dating allows archaeologists to analyze any organic material, such as charcoal pigments or bones found on the cave floor, and determine its age with remarkable precision. A study published in the journal Science in 2018, for example, used uranium-thorium dating on calcite crusts formed over the paintings, proving that some of them were even older than previously thought. Archaeology, therefore, is not guesswork. It is meticulous forensic investigation that allows us to hear the echoes of these incredible artists, giving us the context necessary to try to decipher their message. So, with the Ice Age setting in mind, let's cautiously enter these caves. The light from our imaginary torch dances across the walls, and the first figures begin to emerge. And it is here, in this ancient silence, that the true historical mysteries begin to confront us. At first glance, the answer seems obvious. We see a magnificent parade of the era's megafauna, robust horses with bristling manes, immense bison charging, elegant deer with their intricate antlers. The most immediate conclusion, and for a long time the most accepted, is that the paintings were a direct reflection of ancient daily life. It would be a visual catalogue of hunting, perhaps an instruction manual, or perhaps a menu of the most coveted prey to ensure prehistoric survival. But archaeology loves to challenge hasty conclusions. When archaeologists excavated the floors of these same caves, analyzing the remains of fires and food waste, they discovered a fascinating inconsistency. The most frequently found animal bones, that is, those most consumed by these early humans, belonged mostly to reindeer and, in some regions, fish and birds. However, these animals are rarely the stars of the paintings. The majestic bison and horses dominate the walls, while the reindeer are secondary characters. If art was merely a record of the hunt, why ignore the main course? This simple question forces us to delve deeper. If it wasn't a menu, what was it? This is where we need to leave the logic of our modern world at the cave entrance and try to think like them. Imagine the journey to create this art. Many of the most spectacular galleries, like the Hall of the Bulls at Lascaux, aren't at the entrance. They're deep within, in places that required a perilous expedition through darkness, crawling through narrow passages with nothing but the flickering light of an animal fat torch. Why so much effort? Why paint in the belly of the earth? One of the most powerful and poetic theories championed by researchers like Jean Klotz suggests we've been wrong all along about the cave wall. It wasn't a screen. It was a veil, a portal. According to this view, caves were sacred spaces, a place of direct connection with the spirit world. The artists weren't simple painters, but shamans, spiritual leaders of the community. They would enter the depths of the cave to enter an altered state of consciousness, a trance. In this state, induced by darkness, silence, perhaps fatigue, or the use of psychotropic plants, the human brain begins to generate visions. First, geometric shapes, dots, lines, zigzags, exactly the mysterious symbols we see painted. Then the mind tries to make sense of these shapes, projecting them onto the undulations and crevices of the rock, transforming a natural curve in the wall into the back of a bison, a crevice into the hoof of a horse. The animals were already there, in the rock, and the shaman simply freed them with his pigment. He didn't paint on the wall, he painted through it, touching the spiritual world that existed on the other side. This theory would explain many things. The remote location of the art, the sensation of animals emerging from the stone, and the presence of strange, half-human, half-animal figures, theianthropes. The most famous of these, the sorcerer from the Trois Frères cave, appears to have the legs of a man, the tail of a horse, the claws of a bear, and the eyes of an owl. It would represent a shaman in full transformation, embodying the animal spirits that were the source of power and wisdom. But there's another layer of mystery. Perhaps the art wasn't just an individual experience for the shaman, but a communal event. The incredible acoustic properties of some painted rooms suggest they could have been used for rituals, with chants and drums echoing in the darkness. Perhaps they were initiation sites, where the tribe's young men were taken to learn myths, social rules, and the secrets of survival. The paintings were their textbook, a visual encyclopedia passed down from generation to generation, ensuring the group's cohesion and the continuity of its culture. And finally, we come to the enigmas that persist. The most glaring is the representation of the human figure itself. Amid animals drawn with a precision and vitality that shock us to this day, humans are almost always sketches, stick figures, like the famous scene at the well in Lascaux, which shows a man with a bird's head falling before a disemboweled bison. Why? Was there a taboo? A fear that capturing one's own image could steal one's soul? Or was the message that the human individual was insignificant before the powerful forces of nature and animal spirits? And the hands, those negative hands blown onto the wall, they are the most personal and ghostly signature they left us. Each one is an "I was here" that echoes for 20,000 years, and recent studies analyzing the proportions of the fingers suggest that many of these hands belong to women, challenging the long-held assumption that all art was male. Women and men together, leaving their marks, touching the veil between worlds. Perhaps the art wasn't about hunting or spirits, but about something even more fundamental: connection, identity, and the deep desire to say to the universe, "We exist." After such a profound journey into the darkness, art, and mysteries of prehistory, it's natural to ask ourselves, okay, that's fascinating, but what do these 20,000-year-old cave paintings really have to do with me today, in the 21st century? The answer, I assure you, is everything. Absolutely everything. These paintings are not just artifacts from a forgotten past. They are the birth certificate of the modern mind. They are the foundation upon which we built our entire civilization. The most fundamental and powerful connection lies in a concept that defines our species: symbolic thinking. Think about it for a moment. What is a symbol? It's something that represents something else. The letters that form words on your cell phone screen are not the things they describe. They are symbols. The money in your bank account is not the value itself. It is a symbol of that value. Flags, logos, traffic signs, we live immersed in an ocean of symbols. And the first great physical evidence of this capacity to think symbolically on a large scale is there on the walls of those caves. The early human who painted a bison wasn't just drawing a picture. He was performing a revolutionary mental act. He separated the image from the real thing. He understood that a set of lines and colors could represent the mighty animal he saw on the steppe. This cognitive leap is the foundation of all human cultural evolution. It's what allows us to plan for the future, remember the past in a structured way, and most importantly, share complex ideas with others. Before that, to teach someone about a bison, you needed a bison. After that, you only needed a wall and some ochre. The cave wall was the first server, humanity's first cloud storage, storing vital information outside of a single brain and making it permanent. And this timeline of communication leads us directly to this moment. That impulse to engrave an image in stone is the same impulse that led the Sumerians to create cuneiform, the Egyptians to develop hieroglyphics, Gutenberg to invent the printing press, and engineers to create the internet. The technology has changed, the medium is infinitely more complex, but the fundamental intention is the same: to communicate an idea across time and space. The screen on which you watch this video is the direct technological descendant of the Wall of Lascaux, but the connection goes beyond logic and communication. It touches the core of what makes us human, our creativity, and our search for meaning. Why do we create? Why do we compose music, write poetry, paint canvases? Cave paintings give us a powerful answer: because it's in our nature. That Stone Age artist, facing a brutal world and a daily struggle for prehistoric survival, didn't need to paint. He wasn't building a better tool or a warmer shelter. He was doing something that had no immediate practical function. He was expressing an inner vision, seeking beauty, trying to give shape to the chaos of the world around him. This act of creation, born amid so much adversity, is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. It shows us that art is not a luxury for times of peace and abundance, but a fundamental necessity, a survival strategy for the soul. Every time we marvel at a work of art, are moved by a film or a piece of music gives us goosebumps, we are connecting with this same primal impulse. And the same goes for the search for purpose. Shamanic theories about cave art suggest that these caves were the first temples, the first places where humanity gathered to ask the big questions. Who are we? Where do we come from? What is our place in the cosmos? The attempt to connect with the spiritual world, to understand the forces of nature, to make sense of life and death. This is the seed of every philosophy, every mythology, and every religion that has ever existed. The question, why are we here, whispered in the darkness of the cave to the beat of a drum, is the same question that echoes today in temples, mosques, churches, laboratories, and in the restless minds of each of us. Finally, the archaeology of these works teaches us a lesson about our greatest strength, cooperation. Creating those complex paintings in dangerous locations was not the work of a lone individual. It was a collective project. Someone had to find and grind the pigments. Others had to collect fat for the torches. Others had to assemble wooden scaffolding to reach the high ceilings. And others, of course, painted. This joint effort, this social organization to achieve a common goal that transcended the individual, is the same skill that allowed us to build cities, explore the oceans, and travel to space. We are the direct heirs of this ability to dream and build together. And it all began there, with a group of people united by the light of a campfire, determined to leave their mark on the world. Today, we travel back 20,000 years and see that Stone Age cave walls were much more than shelters. They were canvases for expression, ritual, and humanity's first great historical mysteries. Cave paintings are proof that art is not a luxury, but a fundamental human need. And archaeology continues to provide us with new pieces of this puzzle, connecting us ever closer to our ancestors. Now, I want to hear your opinion. What do you think motivated these artists? Was it a hunting ritual, a spiritual vision, or a way to tell stories for future generations? Leave your theory here in the comments. And if you enjoyed uncovering the secrets of prehistory, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. Until next time.